Well, welcome to our panel discussion, Sustainable Malt is Here and How It Benefits Your Brewery and the Planet. So the production of beer requires a lot of energy and water. The malting process in particular is very energy intensive. Over the last few years, studies have pointed to sustainability becoming an important factor for beer consumers. And in 2022, a Nielsen study found that 66% of US beer drinkers were willing to pay more for a beer that had been produced sustainably. Consumers are becoming more aware of the impacts and environmental and social impacts on their purchases. And another Nielsen study also found that Gen Z drinkers, who we've been talking about a little bit this conference, are likely to value sustainability than any other demographic. So this is inevitably going to affect the future of our industry. Hamish and Mel of Rocky Ridge Brewing, who've always had a passion for sustainability. And the two of them joined forces with like-minded wheat belt farmers Brendan and Gab Savage of Tolga Farm back in 2021, and then later teaming up with Bintani and Joe White to make the goal of making more sustainable pale malt supply into a reality. So join me in welcoming the protagonists in the story as we'll explore the challenges in growing malting and the logistics that have been overcome to produce sustainable malt. And we're going to hear first-hand accounts from the experts on how this unique partnership made certified sustainable malt available to brewers across Australia. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panel of experts. We've got Hamish Coates from Rocky Ridge Brewing, Daniel Baillon from Joe White Maltings. He's the key account manager over there for APAC. Phil Meddings, Joint CEO of Bintani Australia, and Ash Truscott from Certified Sustainable. So thank you, guys. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourselves? Go for it. You go first.
Okay. Yep. My name is Ash. I'm from Certified Sustainable. Been with the group for just under 2 years. The group Certified Sustainable is a proud not-for-profit certification group its origins go back about 10 years. And it was where a bunch of, I call them forward-thinking farmers and passionate farmers who wanted to go about their business in a better way. And to do that, they focused on soil and ecosystem health. And so what came out of that was a lot of learnings, and they captured these amazing successes and outcomes into a standard that is what Certified Sustainable for producers, like for farmers, and that's where Certified Sustainable is today. And we've expanded now to have a services standard and a processes standard for brewers and breweries like yourself. So that's what I do.
Yeah, so Dan Baillon from Joe White Maltings, so key account manager for Asia Pacific, which basically means looking after working with our distribution partners like Bintani for our independents and craft customers, as well as the industrial business in Australia, as well as looking after parts of our Asian business as well. So we export a lot into markets such as Japan and Vietnam as well. So, yeah.
Hamish?
Yeah, g'day. Hamish, co-founder of Rocky Ridge Brewing, head of janitorial services.
Phil Meddings, Bintani. I run it with my brother, Dale. Family business. We've been supplying ingredients to the brewing industry for nearly 30 years and have warehouses across Australia. We've been working with Joe White for close to 20 years, with some other sort of malt suppliers as well. But it's been a great partnership, there's a lot to talk about on this sustainable malt because it's a big thing. So get into it, I suppose.
Yep, lovely. And before that, just to remind you, please, any questions you have, just post them in the app. And I'll keep an eye on that. And if you're looking for the app, it's the Expo Scan Launch app. Just go in and put the code BrewCon23. So thank you for that, guys. So Hamish, I'm going to start with you because you're where this story kicks off. So when you and Mel started having this conversation around sustainable malt, like, did it feel achievable to you? Did you have thoughts around how you were going to get the ball rolling, etc.?
Yeah, look, it was a really interesting one. Brendan and Gab are mutual acquaintances of ours. We met them 4 or 5 years ago, and they were talking to us about how they'd been working on regeneratively growing on site, how they'd been working on introducing all of their inputs to make malting grade barley. We thought it was fantastic, and we really want to work with you. How can we guarantee that we're going to get single origin malt from you? How can we get this barley, and how can we turn it in? Fast forward a few years, we're over at the Craft Brewers Conference, met up with Phil, Dale and Daniel, and got chatting about how can we reduce the impact of raw ingredients, how can we reduce the impact of our malt, and how can we do this in a better way. Took about 18 months of toing and froing and communicating, because there's a lot of logistics involved in getting 320 odd tonnes of malt through a malt house, but we got to the point where we were finally able to start releasing our beers with Certified Sustainable Single Origin Malt from Clouting. Huge amount of challenges involved. I mean, the whole idea initially was that we were going to use a small local WA maltster, and then we thought about trying to get Voyager to do it over east, but there was no maltsters in WA. We've just had a couple open, which is awesome, so we'll be able to get some locally made specialty malts. But again, the challenge obviously for us as a mid-tier production brewery is to have the consistency of our products, so we need to have a reliable base malt and a reliable standard base malt. Hence, going for a full batch, which means that now we've got 7 or 8 months worth of supply on site, and we'll be able to hopefully do another batch in the future and continue that pathway forward.
That's awesome. And I love it when people get an idea and then are tenacious and just make it happen. And so with regards to that, because I know you're very serious about sustainability down there. We had you on a panel yesterday on capturing CO2 and stuff. So what were the no debates? Like, in your mind, for it to be sustainable, what did that need to look like in a malt for you?
I mean, for us, obviously, we want to have consistency of our products. So we wanted to be able to roll this out across everything that we do. It's really important for us that when we start doing something that, number one, we do it first and then we start communicating about it. And that's part of the reason we've taken a few months to get to this point. All of our beers now contain Certified Sustainable Malt as the base malt in it, which is fantastic. And we're working with these guys to push that across all of our malts, which would be awesome, and further that down our supply chain. I guess the biggest thing for us was the ability to do it on a consistent basis. So we needed to be able to do this first batch and get it through, and then start the communication process with other brewers, and hopefully we can make Certified Sustainable Malting the industry standard rather than it being just any old grain grown on any old farm. We want to work with the farmers to make sure that they're doing what they can, doing their small part, so that when we can do our small part in the chain, and overall we can make better quality beers with lower inputs.
That's great. Now, Ash, I'm going to come to you. So what is certified sustainable barley, and why should brewers consider buying it?
Well, Hamish touched on it a fair bit there, I think, mate, that with Tolga Farm, you were impressed with their approach to farming, lower inputs, regenerative methods. At a high level, it's really about focusing on that soil health. So less inputs, more natural management of the soil, low tilling, crop rotations, etc. So these are this is the work that the farmers did to improve their soil health, and also they put a lot of effort into the local ecosystem, typically surrounding the farm or in the farm, and also with our certification. We actually do certify technically against ESG, environment, social and governance. So this is the E side, but also a lot of our farmers are quite active in contributing socially to the community, and have really strong governance structures in place. So to achieve our certification, and we're talking about barley here, our farmers do adhere to these actions and outcomes. And speaking of outcomes, a real win out of it, and it is an absolute byproduct of the approach, is the low emissions. And we calculate every farm, and it varies between 60 and 80% lower emissions than conventional, and a lot of that's to do with the less inputs and less diesel use as well in terms of the tilling. So that's a huge win, and also to achieve the certification for the barley, there's nil reportable chemical residues at the time that it's harvested. So these are massive benefits of the grain, but importantly, what does that stack up to? Why buy it? And I mean, Hamish touched on it. Being the brewer, is that it's delivering a high quality beer, and I think at the end of the day, quality beer is dare I say, first and foremost, but layered into that is a barley that's lower in emissions. You can talk about that. You can talk about the soil. You can talk, if you want, about the social impact as well. So what the certification stamp brings is rich story, real actions, and outcomes, and that's done independently by our certification. So it's not just passing on the story, and I don't want to downplay that either, but with the stamp, it allows you to confidently talk about the benefits to your stakeholders and consumers.
Well, and 60 to 80%. That's fantastic. That's not a small amount, is it?
It's significant, and it can make a huge difference to the industry.
Yep.
I think it will.
Phil, I have a question for you. Did you have any reservations about actually being able to pull this off? Because it's kind of a big deal.
I didn't have any reservations. I mean, we were the notion of being able to supply breweries with a malt that has such a significant reduction on carbon, on the carbon footprint. There's no reservations around that, right? So we were on board straight away. And I mean, for us, Dale and I were at a talk that Topher from Wildflower did. And he's been a zealot for this sort of product for a long time, and the impact he had on people listening to him speak about low input malt was, the audience was basically, and it was a whole lot of non-brewers. It was bar staff and hospitality staff, a lot of people in their 20s, and their eyes were just lit up. They're listening to him talk about the benefits of sustainable agriculture. So we were sort of prepped. So when we met with Hamish, and all credit to Hamish, because he has been committed to this project, and basically he made it happen. And it really did take a massive commitment to buy the end product almost regardless of what it meant, because no one knew what the costs were going to be through the supply chain at that point. So his commitment was just upfront, and it wouldn't have happened without Joe White either. So they weren't, and I don't want to gloss over that. The Joe White bought malt challenges in having a very large malt plant produce a sort of a single source, a barley source that needed to be segregated and treated differently. That's a huge undertaking, and it sort of went all the way through the bought malt management group and needed commitment from everybody. But that's one of your guys' pillars, and it's important to sort of honour that when the opportunity's presented. So the guys were committed, no reservations from us, and just a lot of satisfaction from actually now having this product be able to deliver very true benefits. And I'll talk a bit more about it later, but it's going to be important to for the brewing community to sort of get behind the product, so that the range can be extended and all barley can be basically produced this way.
I suppose there's professional and personal motivations there then, really, like doing the right thing, but also, is that future of the industry. And on to you, Dan, because I have visited your WA site, so I can imagine what this undertaking was. So are you finding that your customers are requesting information and action on sustainability? Is it something you're seeing across, because I know you've obviously got customers in Asia as well. Is this something you're being, challenged on a lot more as a supplier?
I think we probably all are, even the brewers in the room as well. The consumers' tastes are changing, and our customers are demanding the same thing. I think it's sort of split. I mean, your question is around information and action, and I think that's where it's sort of split across at the moment. And we find the larger brewers, the industrial brewers throughout Asia and Australia as well, are probably more information focused at this point because they're trying to understand how big the elephant is in the room. But they're still action orientated too, so don't get me wrong. But yeah, you see through actions that what Hamish has really driven here has meant that you see the different approach that the independent brewers are taking. And in similar to way the independents have sort of changed the beer styles and things like that, it's actually changing the way we approach and tackle this problem. And it's really creating a benchmark for how we want to continue to do it in the future.
Yeah.
It's sort of a different mindset, but they go hand in hand too, because without that information from the larger brewers, we've got the benefit of seeing that. I mean, Lion are quite good and CUB are quite good at referencing information about their supply chain that we can all tap into and see. So we know that rather than doing the analysis, we can focus on the action first. So there's a synergy between both.
Yeah, that's good. And I suppose it taps into, what Bernard Salt was saying yesterday as well about innovation and stuff. And I think that our industry, we're a bit more agile and stuff. And I think we've got the opportunity to drive a lot of sustainability to the bigger guys. So Ash, on the sustainability front, can the brewing industry really make that much of a difference?
Absolutely, and even just to echo what you just said then about the agility of the industry. And we see across multiple sectors with what we do, we don't just certify agriculture or brewing, although a lot of things are happening in this space now, but we do cross-sector certification. But the brewing industry in particular around sourcing this sustainable malted barley, it's just phenomenal the change that can make to the footprint in a bottle of beer. The science varies slightly, but it's around 25% reduction when it flows through to the beer, and that's just through changing your decision around your base malt on a product. So that's phenomenal, and no industry can really do that as far as we're aware at the moment. So that's one thing, is that it can make a huge difference and lead. And the second part is that the brewing industry is so unique in its agility, but its ability to tell a story, and the consumer set that buys into independent craft beer. So it's a phenomenal platform to drive change. And I think the opportunity is too great for the brewing industry or independent brewers not to tackle it and take it on. So from where we sit, it's pretty darn exciting. And I think for the guys in this room, believe it or not, you're right at the front of the nightclub queue, so to speak, because this is all new. This is happening, and you're going to see more of it coming out. So don't lose your spot.
Thank you for that. Hamish, so I know you guys have always been really interested in sustainability, and I was on your panel yesterday for the CO2 one as well. So can you talk a little bit about what some of the other challenges are in the beer industry and what we're facing in terms of actionable, sustainable outcomes?
Yeah, sure. So I guess a huge challenge we all know and we are all seeing currently is slight reductions in consumption. We're seeing people changing their trends. We're seeing lots of different competing products out there in the market. So for us, I mean, we wanted to work with Brendan and Gab first and foremost simply because we really believe in what they're doing. We believe in supporting local farmers. We believe in helping our local community and actually actively getting involved. So a big part of us working and pushing to do this with these guys was so that we could show, I guess, all the brewers out there that certified sustainable is a thing and that you can work directly with farmers and you can actually get an outcome from it. So we can all work together. We can work with our local farmers. We can work directly with some of the big guys as well and make change. I think it's really important for us to start communicating this to our consumers as well, because I think more and more people are interested in local. I mean, we're down in Margaret River, middle of nowhere, I fondly call it, because most people have never been to the southwest of WA. But, we've got an amazing local community and our local community supports us. We want to support them in turn. So I think that our drive and our direction and part of wanting to do this was to show that it can be done, to start working more with our local growers to really reinforce that bond and that link and hopefully encourage everybody else to. And then not to mention the fact that there's farmers out there who are putting so much energy into doing things the right way, and they're not getting the reward for it. They're not seeing any return on it. They're not seeing any increase in price. In fact, sometimes they're seeing that they're not able to sell it. So for us, it's like, we need to tell this story. We need to help the farmers. We need to actually drive meaningful change. And in order to do that, we need to take those first steps, which is what we're doing right now.
Yep, that's great. And actually, it leads me on to my next question, because I was going to ask from the farmer's perspective, like, why should farmers, become certified sustainable? Like, what's their motivation?
I mean, the farmers that are, it's about just protecting their assets and producing high quality product that's better for their farm and their environment. So that's probably their first motivation. But I think we all recognise that we need to do more around this space of sustainability. But not only do we need to do more, but the expectation of consumers and stakeholders are going to continuously, I guess, put pressure on doing more around sustainability. But what we do, and I guess it's farming, it's processing, breweries, it's handling, it's malting, is that we're thrilled to be engaged with these guys because we provide that independent angle and audit, I guess, and check and balance around their actions and outcomes.
Yep. And
so that helps our clients, our growers and alike to be confident with their claims. We provide support and guidelines around that as well through the standard.
Yep.
So we've created standards that are considered to be best practice sustainability actions, and the certification allows these guys to be on a panel like this now, and to be speaking to their customers and in media, etc., with confidence, because we've independently given it the stamp. With that stamp comes a logo that over time will become more recognisable.
Yep. And so on that then, like, sort of briefly, what does it entail? Like, what does that mean? What do the business go through, to get that certification?
I mean, from a farming perspective, there's criteria. We have a standard. I'm probably not going to go through all the nuts and bolts of that right now. And we have our standard expert in the crowd, but I won't hand the microphone to her either. It'd be a question without notice. But essentially, it's those regenerative behaviours on the farm that flow through into the audit. So, inputs you can and can't use.
Yep.
The nil chemical residue at the time of the harvest. What are you doing socially? What are you doing with the environment? All these things have criteria and benchmarks to achieve the audit on the farm. But then if it goes through to the brewery and the product, it's things like 70% of your bottle of beer needs to be sourced from Certified Sustainable Malt, and what's not Certified Sustainable needs to be approved by our certification. And let's just call it, they'll be natural and approved non-GMO type ingredients.
Yep.
Which is a little bit similar to organic as well, that process. So that enables you to get the stamp on your bottle or can. But the overarching certification is not just about the bottle as well. It's about ESG. So what are you generally doing in environment? It's not just about the bottle. Are you doing other things that we factor in and consider? Recycling or solar, whatever it may be. But also, what are you doing socially? And people don't sometimes recognise what they're actually doing. And it's great to harness that into an approved certification that we call out. Do you realise, you are giving back here, you are hosting, you are contributing to the community. The certification allows you to actually go, let's talk about it.
Yep. Actually, yeah, I mean, to your point, you said, it's like a reward for what the farmers are already doing, and I suppose you can apply that to breweries as well. Dan, so can you tell me a little bit about your partnership with Certified Sustainable? Like, how does that work?
Well, like most things in this room, it started over a beer at Hamish's brewery, and after a couple of those, then we wanted to go forward. No, that's not how it went. Look, it really for us, I mean, we'll probably talk about some group goals and stuff later, but for us, it really aligns with what we're trying to do on the barley space. So for us, Scope 3 is basically 70% of our emissions. So Scope 3 for us is barley procurement. So partnering with organisations such as Certified Sustainable for us gives us a lot of confidence around, firstly, the credibility of the farmer. So it's actually, it's all independently audited. We are able to audit it ourselves as well independently, which enables us to get that trust and be able to pass that on to you, that the product is what it says it is. And also, it actually supports really meaningful change amongst the farming community, such that more farmers who maybe aren't doing that right now see the value in actually doing that, and that's actually promotes the change. So for us, it's sort of starting at a local level, but we do actually want to do more of it. So it's ticking the box. It's saying, okay, it's traceable, we can measure it, and also we're delivering a product that is genuinely low carbon emissions. That's really important.
And on that, because as I mentioned, I've been to your site and done the tour, and I was impressed with a lot of the sort of sustainable activities that you have on site. Do you want to talk to that a little bit? Like, outside of this, what sort of things do Joe White do to work towards sustainable?
Yeah, from a group level, I guess it's actually driven, to be honest, by their senior leadership. So we're part of the Bought Malt group globally, and we have some pretty strong targets around that. I won't try to rattle off too much because it'll just be numbers and things like that. But I think our CEO actually is really driven that, and it's really part of our DNA now. So we've got targets, for example, around Scope 1 and Scope 2. It's reduced by 50% by 2030. Very close post that to go fully carbon neutral, and that's meaningful carbon neutral too. That's not anything else. And what we've done as well is not just have a target, but an actual plan to do that, and fully costed, because it's going to cost money. So we need to work out where we're going to get the money from, who we're going to partner with. But it's a very, very clear plan about how we're going to do it, and how that translates locally is, for example, projects such as in the Perth plant we've invested in combined heat power, which will reduce our reduce our electricity usage, and not only that, our Tamworth plant when we reopen will be carbon neutral as well. So we're actually putting money on the ground to do that. But then that's Scope 1 and Scope 2. Barley's that's the bigger elephant in the room for us. I mean, that's 70% of our emissions. So for us, the goal is for there to go at least get the majority of it measured, so we know how big the problem is. Yep. And then we need to focus on working with people like Certified Sustainable to go, okay, well, this is how we not only measure it, but we reduce the emissions as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Hamish, how does it feel like you've successfully achieved this goal? How does the Rocky Ridge team feel about it?
But just to clarify, we were a part of it, but everybody's had a huge role to play in this. I mean, we were really fortunate to have met under over a couple of beers at Russian River of all places and to talk about it. But it was a huge effort from everyone involved to make this happen, and it's really, really cool that everybody managed to come together. Our team's stoked. Like, they're actually over the moon. Everyone was really nervous. I woke up the morning that we were getting the malt delivered, like, what the fuck, pardon my language, what are we doing? But it's turned out amazingly. The quality's fantastic. The grain is absolutely amazing. We're absolutely stoked. The whole team have been jumping up and down about it. Like, honestly, it was a huge thing, and everybody saw it. I mean, we had to put in a heap more storage on site to be able to take some of the malt. We got 120 tonnes at home, and the other 200 went out to Coolin, which is an awful lot of malt to take at once, but it was really cool. So, yeah.
I enjoyed seeing the pictures of the truck arriving on Insta. That was great. Phil, Bintani, I mean, you talked about this a little bit, but like, where do you see things going from here? Like, what does this mean for you guys?
Yeah, good question. It's inspiring to have one brewery start and push on an idea and have that then result in a certified sustainable malt on the West Coast. What it's led to is us working with Joe White and CS on the East Coast as well, visiting farms, seeing farmers that have been actually working for 10 years to reduce their carbon usage. Really very real activities that they're undertaking. But and I guess we really got on board through that. But it's now led to us having a certified sustainable low carbon malt on the East Coast as well. So our warehouses now have CS base malt available, and we want that to keep growing. We want everybody to, buy it out, sell it out. We want to sell out this year's Certified Sustainable Malt, so that next year we can buy more and have it go into more lines. So not just a base malt, but go into specialty malts, Pilsner, Trad Ale, all the works. So that's where we want it to grow. And I think everybody wants to have, if everybody's beer was made with low carbon malt, it'll be a dramatic improvement for the environment. So that's what we want.
Yeah, that's lovely. So finally, on that, so I'm going to ask each of you what your thoughts are. Like, what do you believe is the future of sustainable beer? So I'll start with you, Phil.
Future of sustainable beer. Yeah, I mean the malt's a huge part about it, but it's going through hops as well. You see the same sort of efforts going into kilning or the way the products are extracted, and it's going through everything. As a company, Bintani, we're doing our bit as well. We're working with CS, Certified Sustainable, independent of the malt project, to actually measure our footprint and then take initiatives to reduce that. So, yeah, I mean that's what the malt's going to be a big part in the beer, but I think we'll focus on that to start with.
Yep, Hamish.
Yeah, look, I think for us, we're looking at it as we've got to be responsible for our entire supply chain. We've got to work with everybody inside it. It's not just our scope 1 and 2, as you identified. It's similar for us. 70% of our emissions are from scope 3, which is huge. So we have to actively work within our supply chain, work with our logistics providers, try and make things more efficient, more effective, and better. We can do what we can do in our scope 1 and 2, and we do directly already influence that, and I think most breweries do, because obviously if you can reduce your energy usage, you reduce your bills, so it's a no-brainer in a lot of ways. But that scope 3 and working with suppliers is super important, and I think that's where I see the most work needing to be done, because that's all, to be honest, quite low-hanging fruit. And by just talking to producers, talking to the growers and going, hey, can we do this better? We can start meaningful change, start meaningful conversations.
Do you think sustainable beer will just become the new norm then, some way down the track?
Yeah, look, I think that it's in all our best interests to work better inside our supply chain to find better ways of doing things. Again, it becomes down to reduced energy, which should, in theory, in the longer term, have reduced cost as well. So, we're not making changes today and going, oh shit, it's cost us a fortune to do this. We're making changes today and looking to 5 years to 7 years to 10 years, and what impacts that going to have on us, what impacts that going to have on our consumer, because ultimately if energy keeps doing what it's doing, if CO2 keeps doing what it's doing, and all those costs keep going up, our beers are going to be bloody expensive in 10 years' time. So we've got to make changes now to ensure that doesn't happen. So I guess there's a little bit of selfishness in there as well, in that, this is something that's going to make us far more resilient as a business long term. But not only that, we're doing the right thing.
Yep. Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's probably a good point to pick up on. I mean, we sort of see it as well as it's a moral/ethical obligation for us. No question. But also I think where we see it is that in terms of malting or beer, at the end of the day, I think we can either move first. Sorry, Ash, first move. We talked about first mover advantage before, and I think that's a really good one. But it's it may not only impact consumer preferences, but at some point it might actually impact the financial capital and where that goes. I mean, we're already seeing that now in terms of where people don't want to invest in old technology that's harmful to the environment. So that's going to be a massive impact. So it's either we move now or we are hands forced, and it's usually easier historically to move first.
Yep. Ash, finally over to you.
From where I sit, I think the future is incredibly bright. I think a lot of that's to do with the guys, particularly on this table here. If you don't have the supply chain sorted, then it makes it difficult to flow through. So we've seen some real leadership with these guys. The farmers have, as you alluded to, been working on this for 10 years. There's a lot of work that's gone into being in this position. Doesn't happen overnight. Looks like it did, but didn't. So the malt, there is a good supply of sustainable malt barley coming through, and we're also working on some hops with a hop group at the moment as well. Ryefield, how to say that? So two key ingredients to beer. You've got the barley and the malt. But I think, again, I can't emphasise it enough that we're quite fortunate for brewing to be in this position, in my opinion, because there's that demand from the consumer, the stakeholders, be it investors, market access, regulation, whatever you want to call it, is going to heighten year on year. And brewing's position is in a good position now to be able to respond to it or get on the front foot.
I look forward to hosting the panel on sustainable hops then, when that happens. Okay, I've got a couple of questions for you. So to Hamish, great story to hear the brewery using Certified Sustainable Malt. How do you share this story with your customers? That's a really good question. And how much importance do you place on telling that story?
Yeah, really good question, and a really difficult one for us to tell that story effectively. So we've actually held off from releasing too much information about it until we had the Certified Sustainable Malt rolling out in all our products, because we wanted to make sure that we were actually committed to it and making it happen. So rather than just jumping on the front foot and saying, hey, look at us, we're doing this, we wanted to have the product first and foremost. Now that we've got the product, we're putting together a little bit more of a strategic plan around how we communicate that effectively with our customers. Again, Certified Sustainable being a relatively new certification, we have a education piece there to do, and we have to make sure that that is really, really sound. And again, for us, it comes more back to being authentic and actually following through with everything first, and then telling everybody what we're doing and why we're doing it. I mean, I know everybody in this room holds beer quality as one of the highest things that we can do. So for us, that obviously comes first, and then we can show that, you know, you can still make amazing beer and work with your suppliers and do everything in the meantime to make sure that that has the least impact possible, is brewed in the most responsible way possible, and that we can move forward. But as to how, it's going to be a 12-month, 18-month journey for us, I think, to teach or to educate our consumers around what we do. The locals and the people who support us already kind of know what we're doing and have an idea of it, but again, there's a huge amount of effort to go into making that clear.
And I think, like, you guys are a great ambassador to the rest of our industry about, you know, quality going hand in hand with sustainability. I mean, you had a great couple of years at the Perth Beer Awards and stuff, and so, you know, I think hopefully, you know, people are going to really look up to you guys and see that that's possible. Matthew asks the question, is sustainable something we should elect as a primary focus of the IBA? This is a good question as well. Phil, do you want to pick up on that one first?
Yeah, no problems. I feel as though that sustainable goal or pillar is going to just underpin all businesses and all organisations, and it should definitely be part of the IBA's strategic plan, and their initiative should centre around it, like everybody in the room should have that in theirs. And I guess it does make it harder to avoid... It's not greenwashing. I don't know what the right term is for it, but basically paying lip service to a buzzword. But you know, and that's why this project is so rewarding, is because it's actually very real. Like, and I can't implore people enough to actually seek out and buy low carbon malt wherever it's coming from. At the moment, we're the best option, but I think it's going to be everywhere, and you know, if you look into it, and I think we've got to tell the story better as well in terms of just how big the difference is in footprint. But yeah, so long answer on that one, but yeah, I think it should be.
Anybody else got a view on that? No. Have we got any questions? We've got just a couple of minutes, so yeah, go for it.
Phil, where does malt imported from Germany fit in the picture, the low carbon picture?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one that, as as a business, we import malt. We import malt from Germany. We import malt from the UK, and we sell. Most of the malt we sell is domestically sourced. It's with Joe White, but I think we need to better understand how much carbon comes from shipping, because you hear a lot of different facts and figures out there on it, and what we're seeing is that with sustainable production in Germany, for example, that actually can more than offset the carbon input from shipping. So if you pick the right supplier out of Germany, you're going to still have a lower carbon malt than a non-carbon domestically sourced malt. A non-sort of certified sustainable domestically sourced malt. Ultimately, over the long term, who knows what happens with him? There's no doubt that there's fuels used in shipping. So it's if everything was CS across the planet, then your imported malt's going to be higher, and then it'll come down to just how much higher. And people still do want to differentiate their products, so there's still a demand for it. But it's a question we wrestle with a lot. What's the long term future of it? So I mean, I hope they make solar powered ships, and we can. We can get it here.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because there's so many parts of the supply chain that requires, that innovation and financial support, shipping, even things like malt bags and various things. You've got to balance the requirements of the product itself, I guess, with the sustainable outcomes, and that's not always straightforward.
No, and then the other point is that some of the European standards around farming are a lot stricter than Australia, so they do start from a more sustainable base in terms of the crop rotations and soil health. So
I'm just going to... I think you nailed it with the reply. The way we look at sustainability, it's a continuous improvement journey. That's important. It's not about... cutting things off that will affect your customers if they're using a particular malt from overseas. So it's a continuous improvement journey. It's not a hard and fast tick and cross scenario. But to that point, we're actually starting conversations with some of the supplier from Germany, because they are quite up there in terms of how they manage their farms. So if we're able to capture that information, that'll help probably translate what Phil's talking about in real numbers, and real that's that third party independent audit scenario, not just Phil saying I think or we know. It's actually no, they are. So that's the role. But yeah, we're just starting those conversations now on the subject.
Okay, and I think we've got time for one very quick question. Go for it.
So when you talk about certified sustainable, and I think you touched a lot into soil health, can you please elaborate a little bit more as to, is there measurable ways for you to do, define soil health at the moment from a from a certified perspective, or is it more of a...
Now you're getting really tricky for me. The last question.
Can you do that in 30
I've got an
seconds?
industry development manager in the crowd who can answer that question like nothing else.
I'm happy to take it offline.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about that offline. I think the answer is yes, but I don't want to trip myself up on certain aspects of it, and that's being honest. Miriam here will be able to talk to you about that, or anyone else can ask Miriam about the details of that audit and the soil component. Miriam's an old regenerative farmer from way back, so she knows it like she dreams about it every night.
Oh, there you go. Do you want to pop your hands up so everyone can see it? There you
Yeah.
go. So, because you guys are going to be around, aren't you, today, for the rest of today? So there you go. You've make a beeline for these guys and find out more info.
Booth 91. Booth 91. Bintani booth.
All right. Well, I have to say thank you. That's been absolutely really interesting and very good discussion. Round of applause, guys.